thank you for your support of our Long Island Pine Barren Society and its impressive work. Have a great evening.
We want to introduce you to the best of the rest. To protect Eastern Long Island's treasures, we've enlisted some of the great champions of preservation to show them off. Let's see and listen to the people who know best how to achieve our remaining preservation treasures. 4 of our board members, Tom Casey, Suzanne Ruckles, Jennifer Garvey, and John Turner. We've done it before, we can do it again.
There are several reasons why we're pursuing this Best of the Rest campaign. Many of the parcels offer additional protection for our sole source aquifer. Some directly impact our surface streams, and others contain ecologically significant grasslands and forests. Many are adjacent to or surrounded by already protected land. Preserving contiguous parcels will help us avoid situations that we see out west, for instance, where a checkerboard of development creates problems fighting fire and leads to enormous financial losses. And saving connected open spaces also helps us deter the spread of invasive species. About 15 landlocked parcels in the globally rare dwarf pine plains should be preserved for the integrity of the area and for better management. Also, the same holds true for 5 parcels within Manorville Hills County Park and scattered tracts along the narrow corridor of the Pine Trail Preserve, which is a vital link between Rocky Point State Forest and the Peconic Ponds. And speaking of Rocky Point State Forest, there are about 55 acres in scattered parcels on all 4 sides of the preserve that should be part of the preserve to create 6,000 contiguous acres. Many of these are on the south side of the forest where the fire hazard is greatest. And the same holds true for about 185 acres adjacent to Hubbard County Park and Sears Bellows County Park in Hampton Bays, in a fairly pristine area of the Pine Barrens. In each case, saving these lands would make for better overall management and reduce the so-called edge effect, where invasive species can gain footholds. Also, we think it's important to preserve some significant remaining properties near the Carmans River in historic Yaphank. Among these are the 100-year-old Schuster Farm along County Route 21, an old subdivision proposal near Warbler Woods County Park, and additions to Camp Olympia near the heart of Yaphank, and one final parcel on Ashton Road on the west side of the river. These all abut public land and are close to the river. They can all affect the groundwater, and preserving them would also help retain the distinctive character of historic Yaphank.
The Shore Forest is over 800 acres of beautiful, pristine Pine Barrens woodland and 8 other ecotypic ecosystems of Long Island. It culminates on the Long Island Sound in the northern portion, where there's a beautiful tidal marshland as far as the eye can see. It heals the soul. It's really a gem, and we really should save it.
At the southern terminus of County Road 111, there are also forested Pine Barrens properties, which form the Seatuck Creek watershed. These properties are also deserving of protection.
As Tom mentioned, one of the primary rationales for protecting the Pine Barrens and the advancement of the Best of the Rest program is protection of water quality, both groundwater quality in our underlying aquifers as well as surface water quality in various surface water features such as the Carmans River and Peconic River. And so to that end, one of the first and most important target areas as part of Best of the Rest is 5 parcels that are sandwiched between 2 large DEC-owned properties on the south side of the Peconic River in the town of Brookhaven, actually northeastern section of the town of Brookhaven. If these parcels are acquired, it will allow for assembling several hundred acres of contiguous open space that provides habitat for a variety of species, including some which are endangered. And so that is a really important set of properties. Moving further west in the Peconic system, over at in the headwaters near Swan Pond Golf Course, just south of the EPCAL property, is the golf course. And in fact, recently the county made an offer to acquire the golf course, the Swan Lake Golf Course, as open space. Unfortunately, from our perspective, that offer was turned down by the owner, but we strongly urge government, perhaps Suffolk County, to obtain what we call a legal right, a right of first refusal, so that they may be able to buy the property or be first in line to buy the property in the future. If that cannot happen, that golf course would disappear, and we'd be able to stitch back together a really significant kind of wound that occurred in the Pine Barrens many, many decades ago, and which still causes problems in terms of water quality impacts to the headwater system of the Peconic River. Just above that system is the EPCAL property that is owned by the town of Riverhead, and the EPCAL property is one of the most diverse properties that exist in the Pine Barrens. There's a number of wetlands, again, that provide habitat to endangered species. There's several different types of forests that occur, some of which are extremely extensive, large in acreage. And then perhaps most notably from an ecological perspective, it's the best place in the Pine Barrens, and actually the best place in southeastern New York State for grassland dependent species of wildlife. Really neat bird species like eastern meadowlarks and grasshopper sparrows, other species of sparrows, birds of prey like short-eared owls that come down during the wintertime and hunt over the grasslands that are adjacent to each of the runways, northern harriers, red-tailed hawks, and so forth. So we strongly urge the town of Riverhead to work with partners to try to preserve a very meaningful section, a chunk of the EPCAL property that has ecological value. Just north of the EPCAL property, on the other side of Middle Country Road, is the extensive holdings that are owned by the federal government, but they're not permanently preserved. So we hope that the federal government will take the step to move it from a classification where it's owned, I think it's owned by the FAA, to actually be conserved land. It can still have the FAA function that's there, the tower, but the land around it, which is old field environment, could be better protected. And then just to the northeast of that are two other important holdings that actually are outside the legal boundaries of the Pine Barrens, but still ecologically are functioning as part of the Pine Barrens. And those two properties are about 190 acres total on both sides of Fresh Pond Road, really have significant ecological value, having, again, extensive grasslands, as well as several different types of forests, different types of oak species, hickories, things like that. And then moving back down to the southeastern part of the Pine Barrens, we have the fantastic, marvelous Spinney Hills. It is an area where the glaciers came down 60,000 years ago, created the very tortuous topography, very rolling hills, hence the name the Spinney Hills. And it is one of the most wild sections that remain, not only on the Pine Barrens, but on Long Island. And in fact, there's been some preservation efforts by the state of New York, has acquired 200 acres in the kind of the southeastern corner of the Spinney Hills, as well as the town of Southampton itself has said, we think the Spinney Hills is important, and the town has preserved many, many dozens of acres, both through cluster subdivisions as well as some acquisitions. So we think that the property where the hills are located, the one subdivision that's proposed within the Spinney Hills, as well as a number of holdings in here, should also be acquired and brought into the public domain. Moving further west, the last parcels we'll talk about are near the William Floyd Parkway in the southeastern corner over here of the Long Island Express William Floyd interchange is 700 acres owned by Rose Breslin. That is very extensive, being that large, and because of that, it provides habitat to what we call area-dependent wildlife species. Species that actually, for them to survive, need more than just a couple of acres. A classic example comes to mind are eastern whippoorwills, a wonderful bird that people may hear calling at night. They, being ground nesting birds, really do depend upon extensive undisturbed habitat to breed. And so we could acquire or preserve the 700 acres of the Rose Breslin parcel. We'll be able to ensure that some area-dependent wildlife species will be protected. And then moving up the William Floyd Parkway a little bit, past Brookhaven National Laboratories, at the northwest corner of the William Floyd Parkway and Middle Country Road intersection is about 55 to 60 acres, known as the Ehlers Holding. That is an upland pine barrens forest that is adjacent to DEC, Middle Island Conservation Area, and preservation of the Eller Holding will not only again expand the assemblage that exists there, a basic rule, again Tom had talked about a little bit before about the real value of putting together assemblages of land for its ecological value, but it would also ensure that some endangered species habitat be preserved. So let me conclude by saying that the state of New York, the county of Suffolk, and the 3 towns over the past several decades have done a remarkable job at buying land in the core preservation area, to some extent the compatible growth area, to preserve the pine barrens, bring it into, again, to public ownership for the benefits the public that accrue, to be able to go out and enjoy hiking or canoeing the pine barrens. And this effort, Best of the Rest, is really a culmination of that long-standing effort that's been taking place by various levels of government. So to use a sports analogy, since we're into football season, we're at the 10-yard line from moving the ball all the way down the field, and we want to just punch it into the end zone and complete the acquisitions. And if we do, we'll really be able to help preserve Long Island Central Park, the Pine Barrens, really be able to implement ecological management strategies that will ensure the perpetuation of the Pine Barrens through time, as well as providing, again, 2.6 million Long Islanders an opportunity to recreate to their heart's content.
So let's talk a little more about this Best of the Rest campaign. This is a really unique opportunity to save some critical parcels before they're all gone. Suzanne, what can you tell us some more about Shoreham Forest?
The Shoreham Forest is incredibly diverse. It has so many different forests. It has beech forest, it has hickory hornbeam forest, it has oak forest. There are vernal ponds there where wood frogs and salamanders live, and they're dependent on these vernal ponds for their very survival. And for us humans, there are amazing vistas to enjoy. It's such a beautiful hiking spot, and you just feel so good when you're there.
Yeah, it is a beautiful, spectacular place, great views.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Jen, what can you tell us some more about County Route 111 corridor?
I mean, historically, that's a parcel that has been sought for preservation. People well understand its value, and it's been identified for preservation since well before the Pine Barrens Act of 1993.
Right, it probably should have been preserved along with it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And John, sum up for us, if you can, the value of this campaign and the value of these parcels.
I think it can be summed up by underscoring the multi-kind of dimensional aspect of it. So if we're successful with the Best of the Rest campaign, not only will we help protect drinking water quality, because we estimate about 1.7 billion gallons of fresh water will be recharged to the aquifer below the sites we acquire. We know that surface water, in the Peconic River and Carmen's River will be maintained for the benefit of kayakers, canoeists, fishermen, and so forth. And then a major component of this, of course, is the preservation of wildlife that utilize these properties, that if we can acquire them, they'll be protected in perpetuity. And some really rare species, and some that really do depend upon large contiguous tracts of land. And then turning to the human species, preservation of these sites will ensure that we can go out and recreate. We can go hiking and bird watch and take photographs and basically reconnect with ourselves in a really appealing way. And so this Best of the Rest campaign really is kind of multidimensional and achieves simultaneously a bunch of different goals.
Great, thank you, and let's do it. Let's save these parcels.
So as you can see, the preservationists who work to protect many of Long Island's precious treasures have identified those that remain. Our preservation goal, our newest challenge for the future of Long Island, it's now at hand. Let's take a look at the work of the next generation of environmentalists.
So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in today. My name is Andrew Wong. I'm the program coordinator for the Long Island Pine Barrens Society. We're an environmental nonprofit group that's dedicated to protecting open space and our drinking water. And for the last 6 years, the National Grid Foundation has been supporting us in hosting the middle school kids go to college science competitions. We work with teachers to bring the topics of water quality and pollution into the classroom, which has allowed students to do their own research onto their own chosen topics in that field. And the highlight of this event has always been students getting to put together their own projects, because it's always an incredible display of creativity mixed with their formal education. Because of the pandemic, we've had to change the way we do things a little bit. Normally, the kids would get to visit Stony Brook University in person and receive a special lecture from Dr. Christopher Gobler on water quality. Over these last 2 years, though, we've been making it work over Zoom. And Dr. Gobler is a world-renowned expert on nitrogen pollution, and he outlined the many water quality issues that Long Island has. Long Island waters are being contaminated by nitrogen pollution, mostly from the 360,000 individual cesspools and septic systems that are currently in use. Nitrogen flows from our toilets into these septic systems that were never properly designed to remove nitrogen, and then that nitrogen flows into our groundwater supply. And once it's in the groundwater, it can flow into our surface waters, where it fuels the overgrowth of harmful algae. And these toxic tides, which you may have heard of, referred to by their colors, brown, rust, and red, close our beaches and shellfish beds and destroy our marine economy and ecosystem. Long Island's waters are also being contaminated by plastics, fertilizers, pesticides, volatile organic compounds, and toxic waste. Unfortunately, because of that, Long Island has the most contaminated water in the state and has some of the highest concentration of nitrogen in our groundwater in the country. As sad as all that is, these issues still gave our students plenty to base their projects on, and we got to see just how much creative potential the next generation has with this year's student participants. After their meeting with Dr. Gobler, the students from 4 different schools sponsored their Water Day events. And we got to have a look at projects from over 60 different students in their groups. But we could only pick 3 winning groups from each school. So the selection came down to who understood their topics and had the most unique, well-developed projects. And now we're here today to celebrate these exceptional students. Again, during a normal year, we'd all be meeting in person right now, and the students would be demonstrating their projects to some of the special guests we have with us today. Since we can't be in person this year, we've prepared a special video highlighting our winners and their projects. So let's have a look at that now. The Long Island Pine Barrens Society and the National Grid Foundation are proud to present the 2022 winners of the Long Island Pine Barrens Society's Middle School Kids Go to College Science Competitions.
This is the generation who is going to inherit this place. And so they're out here themselves saying, here's what we've learned in school. This is what we think Long Island should be doing.
While we were unable to visit Nesquik Middle School in person this year, we were still treated to impressive presentations over Zoom. Winners this year included Lila Groneman and Riley Poole, with their presentation on harmful algal blooms and the unique dangers posed, supporting that with an equally unique solution of using kelp to mitigate the damage done by algae growth. Our next winner was Madelyn Geldmacher with her research into nitrogen pollution, offering in-depth explanations of the dangers posed and of potential solutions for minimizing said pollution, going as far as considering the downsides to those solutions as well. Our final Smithtown winner was Sophia Leodis with her project on pleasure boat pollution. The only one of its kind across all 4 schools, Sophia's unique presentation looked at the potential pollution coming from private boat owners and offered regulatory solutions to combat luxury pollutants. We were lucky enough to visit the remaining schools in person, including Saxon Middle School, where we saw Michaela Trisham and Regan Gottlieb's project on water conservation, which they conveyed through not just words, but visual aids as well, to drive home the importance of protecting the water that we drink. Our next winners were Silvana Lorenzo and Anthony Salduco, who presented on fertilizers and how the nitrogen inside of them can seep into our groundwater, offering regional data and the types of pollution that can occur in order to expand and present their data. Our final Saxton winner was Charles Clements, who also presented on nitrogen, going into detail about the causes, effects, and potential solutions to nitrogen pollution, even offering a unique focus on Suffolk County's septic tank use and its contributions to said pollution. At South Ocean, we were treated to more looks into the effects of nitrogen and fertilizers, this time through Olivia Morris and Riley Diaz's presentation on chemical and organic fertilizers, the ways in which they differ, and how chemical fertilizers can leach nitrogen into our waters through overuse. Also presenting on nitrogen were Gavin McMurray and Sophia Feliciano, who took their focus to the specifics of our aquifers, and narrowed down their topic even more to power production on Long Island and how contaminants can leak into our water. Finally, we got to see Spencer Santorino's evaluation of water pollution through unsanitary sewer systems, a topic well outside the typical range of a Suffolk school, in which he explained to us the kinds of sewage systems used and their potential effects in the event of a failure. Finally, at Oregon Middle School, we were treated to a variety of miniature models used by the students there to express their topics, starting with Jason Leto, Talon Zizolfo, and Gavin Shea, who showed us their model of an aquifer using a tub of sand and a soap pump to explain to us the importance and function of them on Long Island. Afterwards, we got to see Conanciati and Giovanni Cruz's display on ocean pollution, offering a clear example of the consequences both to humans and animals before allowing us to look at their model of a garbage float contained within a small plastic container. Our final winners this year were Ryan Karan and Carter Rahl, who explained to us the necessity of keeping our storm drains clean and talked about the potential contaminants that can make their way through them and into our local waters, illustrating this with 2 cardboard boxes that they'd have other students throw small balls of clay through to illustrate debris entering our local waters through storm drains. So, let me say again, congratulations everyone for the hard work you did this year. You did a great job. And with us today is also the Pine Barrens Society's Executive Director, Richard Amper, who has a few words he'd like to share.
Thanks, Andrew. I very much appreciate it. And I was very, very impressed by these students. They were well researched, very, very thorough, and I think a favor to the population at the school. I was impressed. I spent a good deal of time with the students and walked away very impressed.
Thank you, Richard. And like I said earlier, we have some very special guests with us today I'd like to acknowledge. First is State Assemblyman Stephen Engelbright and the Suffolk County legislators Al Krupski, Nick Carcappa, and James Mazzarella. We also have the Brookhaven Town Supervisor Ed Romaine with us and the Executive Director of the Pine Barrens Commission, Ms. Judy Jacobson. I know our honorees probably don't know too much about local Long Island politics, but these all took the time to drop in and see all the great work you've done today. So thank you again so very much for being here. I'd like to repeat, we're only able to do this project every year with the help of the National Grid Foundation. In the last 6 years have only been possible because of their continued support. And we have with us a number of representatives from the foundation with us today. Christine Berardi, Ms. Kelly Robbins, and Ms. Pam Foca. Additionally, we also have with us this year the Executive Director of the National Grid Foundation, Mr. Ed White. Mr. White, did you have anything you'd like to say to the students?
Yeah, so I'll be very quick, Andrew, but thank you for taking the time to invite us. And as you were going through the winners and watching the video, I was also equally watching our young people on screen. And the sense of pride, not only in their faces, but their parents' faces and their families' faces, I think is just fantastic. We love the fact that not only did you articulate the problem, but that we could be even just a small part of future solutions for Long Island. So, we love supporting this program. It's one of my favorite ones that we do. And we look forward to supporting you in the future.
Thank you so much, Mr. White, for your comments. We're only able to do this every year because of him and the entire National Grid Foundation support.
Weren't the kids great? Thank you for joining us this evening. Don't forget our exciting silent auction